All right, you're good to go.
I'm good.
Excellent. Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Talk to Danielle podcast. I am your host, Danielle C. Baker. And today we are going to be talking about being less than unstoppable. I have an amazing guest coming on today, and I'm just really excited to have Dayne on because this whole point of this podcast and what I do now is to give people a voice, give them the words that they need to be able to speak up and speak out. And this is why I'm excited to have Dayne on, because it's exactly what we're going to be talking about. And so I'll do a quick introduction. And we have Dayne Bachmann on with me today. Thank you so much, Dayne, for joining me. And can you just tell us a little bit about your story to explain your story?
Sure, and I'll try and keep it brief. So I was assigned female at birth, and my childhood was very chaotic. I never felt like I fit in anywhere. I went to a Catholic grammar school and had to attend church every Sunday. I wanted so badly to be an altar boy. I mean, I had to be in church, so why couldn't I be an altar boy? However, back in the 70s, that was frowned upon. It was just boys that could be altar boys. So I was pretty mad at God at that time that I couldn't do that. Fast forward to high school, again, I struggled to fit in there too. And because it was so uncomfortable for me, I turned to alcohol and some drugs, and I was able to get through my days by doing that. It gave me a sense of calm when inside me was so filled with anxiety, and I had no person to turn to at that time to give me that sense of calm. At that time also, I realized the only thing that fit for me was I must be gay. That was the only thing that was remotely close to how I was feeling. So I lived that way for many years. I think I got kicked out of my house at 18 because I came out as being gay, and my mother, didn't like that, kicked me out. And, I stumbled again, not knowing who I was, where I was going. I was angry, I was depressed, anxious. Still, alcohol and some drugs were in my life. Fast forward a little bit more. I got into therapy as an adult, and come to find out the therapist that I found was a gender therapist. I had no clue at the beginning when I picked her. And we started talking about gender identity, and I don't even know how all this evolved, but it just happened in our conversations, and I felt heard for the first time. At this time, I also came across Chaz Bono's book, and that was my aha moment. Everything that Chaz Bono had in his book about transition, and how he felt leading up to it, and even some of the procedures that he had, it was me. Like, I was reading my story, and for the first time, I felt not alone. So in all this mix, I did give in to family pressure, and I did marry a man. I was told that's the only way that you're going to be successful in life is to have a man. And I fought it for so long, and then I just gave in, and immediately, probably hours after I said I do, the anger reared its ugly head. Anxiety came back stronger than ever. I was so depressed. I stayed married for quite a while, and I think the only way I was able to stay married was because he was in the service and he was overseas a lot. So we were together like 6 or 7 years. And I knew I couldn't go on any longer living this life. It was either do something or probably end my life, because, you know, that feeling came back from when I was in high school. I didn't want to live. But something kept me from committing suicide. I don't know what it was, but I'm grateful that I didn't. But those feelings came back when I was married, and I knew that I had to make a change. So I got divorced. I ended up, shortly after that, I met my soulmate, and we've been together. It'll be 11 years married this November. And we dated for 2 years before that. You know, I felt at that time I could be my true self with my partner. And I remember one day I just said, I want to go shopping. And they were like, sure, let's go. And I was like, no, you don't understand. I want to go shopping, but in the men's department. And they were like, cool, let's go. And I was floored. I was like, so do you know what I'm saying? And, you know, and they were like, yeah, I do. I was like, okay, well, and then I said the words. I said, I am transgender. I'm a transgender male. And they said, why do we need labels?
Mhm.
You know, society teaches us that we have to label everything. And they were like, I love you for your heart and soul and who you are as a person, not a label. And if that didn't solidify I was with my soulmate, it did at that moment.
That's exactly what I was going to say. That's when you know you're with the right person, is when it doesn't matter.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Yeah.
And I was able to start my medical and social transition in June of 2017. And here I am today talking to you.
You are, and I appreciate it. Such an amazing story. And you said some very important things there, where you were saying you, for the first time with your therapist, so you felt heard. And I think that's one of the things that is the most important. There's something that what really touched me in your book. There's many things that touched me, but one of them is when you say that you didn't have a name for what you were feeling and you had no one to turn to. That is one of the heaviest things that you carry. Anybody. And I worked in schools for so long. You see those children, you know, children that are struggling, that they don't have the words, and your story is allowed to put those words out there for people to find their voice and speak up and be able to become who they truly are. And I just love that you share that. And that was kind of leads me to the next question, because when you decide that you're going to do that change, you're going to, you know, transition into who you truly are. It doesn't, you don't just wake up one morning and say, okay, I'm doing it. You know, there's a buildup, like your story just said. There's a lot of internal struggle there that people don't see it. A lot of people will just say, oh, you just wake up and have the surgeries. It doesn't work that way. What would you say would be the toughest thing you had to overcome to say, okay, I am doing this, and I'm becoming who I really am and who I feel, how it feels right for me?
Yeah. The biggest thing, well, there's 3 things. One was being rejected by others,
Mhm.
fear of the unknown, and society played many tapes in my head. So those 3 things were the biggest for me.
Yeah. Yeah. And I would definitely, that's a big chunk of it because society has a big role in it. And so I remember you mentioned Bono, when he came out with his book, there was uh, a lot of opinions out there. So, and he was really one of the first ones to speak out. So that from my generation anyway.
Yeah.
And so seeing what's happening to this person who's finally speaking up, it kind of makes you think, do I really want to be going through this? And so it's great that you had somebody who, your soulmate who could say, okay, they were there for you and ready to support you, and that's amazing. Now you are a therapist yourself. You did become a therapist. How would you say that transformation has changed you to show up as a mental health therapist?
You know, since I transitioned, I'm at home in my body now.
Mhm.
And my inside is congruent with the outside. So when I work with the trans community, they could feel, and they know that I totally understand where they're at, what they went through, because I was there myself. And they see that confident man sitting in front of them, feeling comfortable within themselves, and that gives them hope.
Yeah, absolutely. It makes a difference, like you said earlier, being heard, and there's that sense of feeling lighter. You don't have that burden on you, so it really does. Um, I guess as a side note, it's more out of for my own curiosity is you already had your practice when you transitioned. Am I correct?
Correct.
Yes. So how was your environment, your colleagues, your current clients? How are they with the whole transformation?
Sure. So I at the time that I was starting to transition, I went into my own private practice. And I didn't plan that way. It just so happened to be at the same time. And I thought to myself, well, I don't have to worry about my boss
Mhm.
giving me a hard time and firing me because I'm trans. I'm not going to fire me. So it worked out very well for me in that way. I think um, I dodged a lot of balls that way. And then the other part of that is, okay, now my clientele that I had at that time, right? They knew me as a female, and they knew that I was in a gay relationship. So I don't believe that I lost any of my clientele. I actually still have at least 3 people from back then that have seen me through start to where I am today. And then, the other ones, they just, they were at the end of what they wanted to work on. So then they moved on. But I did not get judged from my clients. So it was a good thing for me to go into my own private practice and be who I was authentically and just become the person that I am today sitting with you.
Yeah, that's awesome. I know I kind of surprised you with that question, but I really appreciate
Yeah.
that. And I like you really are authentic. You just come out and say, this is how it is. And that's what we need. We need more people like you out there to come on and speak. Now, I mentioned your book earlier, but how did you know that it was time for your book to come out?
I sitting with my clients every day. I see the struggle. I hear their pain, and I could identify with all that they were going through and are going through. And I remembered, I reflect a lot on myself. So in that reflection, I reflected back to when I picked up Chaz Bono's book and how he made such an impact on my life. I thought, how can I now pay it forward? And I was like, you know what, I'm going to do this. I need to do this. And one of my first thoughts was, ooh, I'm a therapist. Therapists don't share in-depth stuff with their clients. My business is going to be out there for everyone. And, that took some time to adjust to, and, talking to people and seeing how I would really feel about that. Because it's very personal. And at the end of the day, I knew in my heart that I had to write the book because I wanted to make a difference in at least one person's life. And, I will go a little bit further with this. I didn't realize how much of an impact it was going to have in a good way. I have worked with some of my clients for a while, and, we talk about some deep stuff, but after my book came out and they read my book, our working relationship went so much deeper. They knew, like, I was a confident man sitting in front of them. They knew that I went through some stuff, but now they really saw. And they were probably thinking, well, now I could dive deeper. And they did. And some of the work that I've done with my clients since writing the book has been amazing. It makes me so happy to know that I've made a difference. And, I've met 2 new friends through writing the book. They reached out to me and let me know how much the book helped them. And, we've met on Zoom because we were in COVID and stuff. So I've won. I made 2 new friends. My work has been enriched with my clients. And
Yeah, I'm glad you mentioned that, because in that profession, there is a line you're not supposed to cross between personal and professional. So it was a risk already in itself, and just putting yourself out there, being vulnerable. But it does turn out to work great because you're reaching out to so many people who don't have that voice, and they can relate to you. So that's wonderful. I'm
human, just sorry. At the
no,
end of
no,
the day, I'm human, just like they are,
Yeah.
And that was more important to me than not, we shouldn't share with our clients. And, there are times in my work that if somebody is going through a hard time, I will say, hey, I've been in a similar situation. This is what it was, and this is how I got through it. So I do share a snippet when it's needed, when I know it could help somebody. But yeah.
That's wonderful. Now I got to meet you. We've only met virtually, but at your book launch, actually, you were just starting, and I've seen you work through some of the conferences, and you talk a lot about the importance of pronouns. And I thought that was also great because there's so many people out there that are still unsure how they feel about that. And there, a lot of people have a lot of opinions, but I like the way that you explain it, and it's just so simple. So can you explain to our audience why pronouns matter, why it's so important?
Yes. And I do talk about it a lot, and it's probably the highlight of a lot of my trainings.
Mhm.
But since we have limited time, I picked 3 things out of all that I normally talk about, and this is what I want to share on pronouns. it shows respect to the person. It shows that the person is seen and heard. And it makes more of an inclusive environment.
And it's that simple. We don't have to look further than that. It's just so easy to just say, what are your pronouns, and just move on with it. So it's wonderful.
And be kind, kindness matters.
Yes.
It's show respect.
Yeah. And that's all it is. It's just to show respect. Yeah, it's very simple. So why make it complicated? It's just out of respect, let's ask, and share our pronouns. So what would you say that still needs to change on how people in general view the transgender community?
Yeah. The biggest change that I want to say needs to happen is transgender people are human. We just want to be seen as who we are. So yeah, that's the biggest thing that needs to change, is we need to be seen as human. And just like my partner said way back, why do we have to worry about a label? It's what's inside the person that matters. And one of the other things is, just because someone's transgender, it doesn't give you the right to ask about what surgeries they've had or are going to have. Transgender people don't go up to a cisgender person and ask them, hey, how do you have sex? What's in your pants?
Exactly. Yeah.
And that's huge. I mean, it's happened to me, so I know firsthand, and it happens more than anybody would think that it happens. That's all.
It's a good point, because it's not just because it's a gender topic that gives you the right to talk about the private stuff. And it's just not appropriate in any situation to be asking personal questions like this. So it doesn't change just because you're talking to the transgender person. So I'm glad you brought that up, because those questions are inappropriate no matter who you are. So we're human, and that's all that matters. So let's respect that. And
we bleed the same, right?
Yeah, exactly. I'm glad you brought that up, because it is important for people to realize that it doesn't give you the right to ask such invasive. For me, if anybody would come up to me and ask me what's going on under my clothes, I would put them in their place. So, why should that be different for you, right?
And, it's funny that you said, I put them in their place. I would want to as well. Mm-hmm. And I think if a transgender person was to put somebody in their place, I think that would give us, see, transgender people act like that. If you yourself just said, dude, it's none of your business, I think it would be taken differently from a cisgender, right?
I would be seen as sassy, or assertive. But for you, it would be completely different. You would just be rude, Forget the person that asked the question. You're the one that's being rude for putting them in their place. Yeah.
See how transgender people are, so.
Yeah, no, this is good. It's a very good point. You mentioned earlier, that's one of the questions I wanted to ask you, because I work with children, and I've seen actually some of the kids that I worked with when they were in kindergarten and throughout elementary school. I could see you were saying you felt out of place. You didn't feel like you you belong anywhere. And I've seen some children that I worked with who later on transitioned. And it just kind of gave me that moment where it's like, oh, there's so much more I could have done to help, but what would you have needed? You mentioned it a little bit, but what would you have needed when you were younger? Or what did you wish your friends and family would have, what would you have needed to hear from them when you were going through this?
I think just my family being more accepting of me. Like I said earlier, when I came out at 18 to my mom, I got kicked out of the house and she didn't talk to me for a year because of that. I think, as parents or, a teacher being in the education system, just be aware of if somebody's acting different or they're more isolated, ask them, are you okay? What's going on? You might be the first person that they tell what's going on, and they will feel heard and they will be seen. Again, it comes down to kindness. If you see somebody hurting, ask them if they're all right.
Yeah, and it's so important, especially for children, to be heard and be seen. We all need it as human beings, but children especially, they don't have the words, they don't have the names, they don't know how to identify what they're feeling. So they need that extra support.
Yeah.
You don't need to say anything. Sometimes just to hear them, just to listen, or just to leave that, that quiet space, that safe space, it makes a difference.
Yeah, you mentioned safe space, and as a teacher, we'll just go with education and a teacher. I know the education system could be, it's political, right? There's so many different hoops. But if you could have in your classroom even a little sticker on the board that says safe space, or I'm a safe person, that could make a difference in somebody's life. Especially nowadays, because there's so much out there, and kids know more than we knew when we were growing up in, like, I don't know how old, but in the 70s. So they're aware much earlier. So I believe that if they saw some sort of rainbow or I'm a safe person, they would know that.
Yeah, I like that. It's so simple just to say, and we should make buttons for everybody to wear. So I'm a safe person, because we need to hear that. Yeah. And not just for the transgender community, but for anybody. And we were talking about neurodiversity or anything in a school. That would be a game changer for sure. And so simple. Again, everything that you give is nothing outrageous. It's just so simple, just out of respect, out of kindness. Let's make this a safe space. Yes. I like that. What words of wisdom would you like to share for someone who's still struggling or afraid to become their true self? What would be your words of wisdom for that person?
That's funny that you said to be their true selves, because one of the things that I thought about was, being true to yourself. Just always be true to yourself. You know you better than anyone does. Don't give up. I like to tell people, don't give up 5 minutes before the miracle. We don't know what's going to happen 5 minutes from now. Also, there's a light at the end of the tunnel. It's dark going through it, but I'm living proof that there's light on the other side. And lastly, I mean, if a person is old enough, I would say find a gender therapist and do your research. Make sure that that gender therapist knows about what we go through. There are therapists out there that say that they're affirming and
Yeah.
stuff, but I mean, I've had clients come to me that they thought they were going to a gender therapist before, and it did more harm than good, and it slowed down their transition by a year or 2 years. And so just do your research and ask questions before you even go.
Mhm. Yeah, you have the right to ask questions, that's for sure. Yeah.
So those would be the biggest things that I would say.
Those are great. And like you said, you see there is a light at the end of the tunnel, and you will find your tribe once you're on the other side of that tunnel, where
Yeah.
you mentioned yourself, you found your soulmate, and you just knew from the way you felt and the way that you were being heard. Imagine having an entire, family of that. It's a game changer. So
Sure.
yeah, don't give up. That's the important thing. Um, what are you working on right now? I mean, you do have your practice, and you still do some speaking gigs here and there. What do you got going on now?
Yeah, so again, like you said, my business, I do trainings. I also work with the Department of Corrections in Connecticut, um, teaching gender affirming care. That's a population that really needs to be heard, and they just need that person to hear them. So that's one of the big things that I'm working on. The other thing, I'm tossing around a second book idea, and this time, this book would be a collection of stories from other LGBTQ plus individuals. We come from all walks of life. Yes, we have this one thing in common, but everybody's journey is unique. And I think putting this type of book together could help so many people. Somebody might not resonate with my story, but they might resonate with yours. So that's what's going on in my mind. I'm starting to plan that, and how I want that to exactly look. And I want people to know that there's no right or wrong way to transition. And I think that this book that I'm going to do will show that.
Mm-hmm. That's amazing, because yeah, it is a personal journey. So there's no cookie cutter or magic formula for how to transition. So hearing different stories is definitely helpful.
Yeah, I mean,
Yeah.
it would be great if it was a cookie cutter.
Ta-da! You're good now. It doesn't work that way. No, that's good. I always ask this question. It's a long story with this little girl who interviewed me for a school project, and she was asking all the adults she interviewed. I told her that I would ask everybody that I interview. So my question to you is, where do you want to be when you grow up?
Can I let you know when I get there?
Yes. Absolutely. It keeps changing. We keep growing. Yeah.
Yeah, and that's the beautiful thing.
Yeah.
Anything's possible now that I know who I am and I'm happy. So anything is possible.
Yeah. You can be everything you want. Anything and everything that you want, you can do. And that's why I love asking that question, because there is no straight answer. It's just whatever I want to be when I get there. Yeah. That's awesome.
Like
I like
today, I
it.
could do anything that I put my mind to.
Yeah, that's great. Excellent. Now, if anybody wants to reach out or follow what you're doing, how can we reach you? And I'll add those to the comments when we put this podcast live. If you could just share
Sure.
your information.
My website is www.twinpeakscounseling.com, or I could be reached at via email, twinpeakscounseling2018@gmail.com. My book could be purchased on Amazon, and it's on Audible as well.
Oh, yes, and it is a great book, so I encourage anybody. I lent my copy to a friend of mine who was really interested. Do you have it? Oh, good, you do have it. So it's she, he, me. I love this book. It's a great book to share, and keep following Dayne as well. Like I said, there's so many things that he's doing right now to help the community. To do his part. To have people heard and give them a voice. So I want to thank you so much for coming on today. I really appreciate it. There's more, your message needs to be out there, and we need to help out as many as possible. So I really appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thank you. And for everybody watching, stay safe, stay awesome, and we will see you soon.